So it all started in year 2007 when I made my Facebook account. And like all of us post, share, write, I posted a quote on Facebook. In no time, I got a message from somebody living in USA named Bob Akers. He was an old man, and he wrote to me saying that what I wrote on Facebook has changed his life. He said that his relationship with his son for all these years has not been very great, has been on rocks, and now he understands why. The quote was, it wasn't mine, the quote was, someone once asked me, why do I insist on choosing a hard road? I replied, why do you think that I see two roads? After a few years, I find myself in the same spot. While everybody around me thought that divorce is absolutely not the answer, I knew that that was the only thing that was necessary to be done. I knew that the relationship has gone beyond repair and I cannot get it back. I was 28, I was married for 8 years, and I had a son who was all of 5. Now, how much do you trust a 28-year-old's mind to take decisions that are as grave as divorce, as life-altering as divorce? But then I ran away at 19 and got married to somebody whom I didn't know at all. How about that? I lost a decade. I lost all my self-confidence, and I lost my name. And that's the time that Kabir came up and told me that, Mom, why don't you use my name alongside yours? And that was a resurrection of Vani Kabir. Now fondly known as the Modern Sufi, and also a senior creative director of an advertising firm. I thought that my life is going to change after divorce. It's going to become easier after divorce, because that was, at that particular point of time, the saddest part of my life. But clearly, that didn't happen. Because when I was in a divorce, I was only having one issue, which was internal. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? Why is my relationship like this? But the moment I got divorced, that internal thing got split up into two and became internal and external. Because जब तक आप शादीशुदा हो और आप एक culture में हो, everything is okay. People are going to take you on the face value of it, and the external bit is sorted, and people don't want to look at your internal side. But the moment you become divorced, you're exposed to so much more. I lost one mother-in-law, I gained 5. The ones that I'd never wanted in my life. All my neighborhood people became watch people. They always used to, wonder, what am I doing? Why am I wearing this? Where am I going? Why do I have a guy standing in my balcony? And all of that. And I started becoming more and more vulnerable. Due to that vulnerability, I stepped into some really odd, demanding, and uncaring relationships. Those relationships took pieces of me that were very important to me at that particular point of time. I was stressing myself out to the core. I wasn't able to understand what's going on with me at that particular point of time, and all that I used to do was sit and cry. I have this gang of girls around me who used to tell me that this is not the whole picture. This is only some part of it. But as people, as individuals, you don't get to see it. You can't look beyond a particular point, or you're like horse with blinkers. And then one fine day, I was diagnosed with H1N1 flu. Now before, I'm going to just take you back a little bit. When I was married, I used to run 2 companies of my own, and they were extremely flourishing companies. I lost those 2 companies in my divorce, and I was back to ground zero. Now, when I say ground zero, to a lot of people, it means that, okay, so what if she lost a business? So what? It was just a relationship, and the relationship was also bad. No, it wasn't that. It was everything in me that I lost. My self-esteem, my courage, my bravery, my fearlessness, everything. And there I was, standing with my son Kabir. I remember that day when I had left my home, my ex-home, to be coming to the new home. And I'm looking at my home like this, and I'm wondering, did I make the wrong decision? Do things happen like these, or should I go back? I was weak in the knees, and then I thought that no, this is not how it's going to be. This is not how Vani is going to live her life. And I decided to move into that house where there was nothing. And I started making things bit by bit, and today here I am. With all those bad relationships, now when I say bad relationships, they're not just love relationships. I had bad friendships. I had bad people that I was working with. I had bad neighbors. I had everything that was pulling me down at that particular point of time. And one fine day, over a glass of wine, I was thinking that what am I doing? I was only turning my phone book into a graveyard of relationships and people that I'm never going to contact again in my life. So what am I doing? So in all of this stress that was there in my life, I got this H1N1 flu, and I was totally secluded from the rest of the world because I was inside a house, I couldn't do much, I couldn't go to work, and it was 3 months, and it was a bad phase to be in. But as it goes, that all the bad things have something good in it. So my friends used to think that I am never going to wake up alive the next morning. That's how bad I was. 18 hours of a day, if a person is crying over the phone, how much do you think that the person can survive? I wasn't sure that I'll survive that. And so one of my friends called up my brother in San Diego and apprised him of the whole situation. In no time, me and Kabir were shipped to San Diego. Like literally shipped. We didn't want to go, we didn't know what to do. We were just packed with parcel and we were sent. So I went there, and as San Diego is, it's a very quiet place. It's a very, secluded sort of a place to be in. I overthought about overthinking. As much as one person can possibly think, I overthought even that. And as a result, I was going weaker and weaker and weaker. So probably my brother saw it, and he told me that, you know what, Didi, let's take a road trip to LA. Maybe that's going to change, something inside you. I jumped at the opportunity and I said, yeah, let's go. I had a few days to plan, and only God knows what got into me at that particular point of time. I went onto my Facebook again, and I looked for people who lived in LA. I had 6 people in my profile who lived in LA, and I wrote to all of them, saying that I am coming to LA only for a day, and I would like to meet you for a cup of coffee and a conversation. I think those people were mad. They accepted my invite and said that they would love to meet me. I went there. Those 4 people that I met, I owe my life to. And this whole change that you see in me today, from a really suppressive, really heartbreaking sort of an individual to a person who's always smiling, I owe it to those 4 people. The first person I met was an author and a writer. The second person I met was a single father. The third person I met was a person who owned chain of restaurants in Hollywood Boulevard Street. The fourth person that I met was a copywriter in one of the leading advertising agencies there. Those 4 people didn't look at me like I was a survivor. Those 4 people didn't look at me like there was something really bad that had happened in my life. Those 4 people looked at me like I'm a warrior, trying to protect my son, trying to protect my territory, trying to protect my work. Those 4 people told me that what I'm writing, why should it be there only in my diaries? Those 4 people told me that if you have an idea about the book, what is it doing in your head and why is it not out yet? Those 4 people unanimously told me that if you want to heal in your life, you got to heal other people. That's where my writing was born. But we are all human beings, और हमारे साथ जो अच्छा होता है हम उसे वहीं छोड़ देते हैं, और जो हमारे साथ बुरा होता है उसको हम लेके चलते हैं साथ में, जैसे ये हमारा पार्सल है, इसको तो लेके ही जाना है. So all the good that happened with me in San Diego, I left it there, and I came back and fell into more stupid, idiotic sort of relationships and gave away myself more. I used to spread myself thin for people and never realized that how much is it taking away from me. And then again, I came across something. It's a question that somebody put up to me. And it goes like, if you're walking and you have a small pebble in your shoe, what do? You call up your mother and crib about it, Mama, I have a pebble in my shoe. Do you call up your friend and tell them, अरे यार मेरे पैर के अंदर है ना एक छोटा सा पत्थर है मैं चल नहीं पा रहा उससे? You don't do any of that, right? You take off your shoe, you take the pebble out, you deal with it, you wear it again and walk again. Why don't we do this with our uncomfortable emotions? The first time I heard this phrase, uncomfortable emotions, it rung a bell with me. I ask you here that is there any person who doesn't deal with uncomfortable emotions at least once in a day? We all go through it. We go to work happy and we come back unhappy. We do something and we think that, oh, we are going to go to that party and we are going to have a blast of our life, and then suddenly something triggers off and you're just not that person anymore. I decided to write about these uncomfortable emotions because I truly believe that there can be no healing without diagnosis. What I write about is not about how to deal with these emotions. My God knows I don't know how to deal with these emotions myself. But what I write about is how you understand what you are going through. So I started writing quotes and poetries and short stories where people can read and relate to that this is what I am writing and this is what I am going through in life. So when I started posting all of these on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, to my shock and surprise, there were people in gazillions who started writing back with the stories of their life and horrid, amazing, interesting, unbelievable stories of their life. And I was like, how is it that these people are surviving all these emotions every day? While they drew strength from me, I drew strength from them. So they used to write about this, that, the quote that you put up, Vani, today has led us to live one more day thinking that there's somebody in some other part of the world who's living that state happily. And that's where the whole turnaround came in. I started doing talk shows, I started doing radio shows, I started going abroad to universities, talking to people, telling them that if you are uncomfortable, it's okay. It's absolutely okay to be uncomfortable, and that's the idea that I want to put into the world, saying that being uncomfortable at certain given point of time in your life is completely okay. So get comfortable with the uncomfortable within you, because that's the only way that you're going to own up to your journey. Having said all of this, I want to say that I am no relationship expert. I don't counsel people. I'm not a relationship expert. I don't have any great relationship experiences in my life that I can share with people. But at the same time, what I do is I come out and I tell you what you are going through in your relationship is absolutely okay. It's absolutely fine to not have a great relationship in life. It's absolutely okay to jump from one relationship to another. It's absolutely okay to try and put all your investment into one relationship, all your emotional investment into one relationship, and see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, it's completely okay as well. Because end of the day, it's your life and it's your path that you want to choose to take forward. What all of this teaches you is to become bold in life. When you own up your journey, you stand up for yourself. A lot of people take stands for this and that. And, okay, there's an attack, we'll all stand up for it. Okay, there's this, girl homicide, we'll stand up for that. How many people sitting here would take a stand for your own self and say that this is what I want to do and this is who I am? We don't. And this is what you get to know from the writings that I write. I'm not a relationship expert, and I'm not the person who tells you that whatever you are going through is going to get better. No, darlings, it is not going to get better with time. You will have to first understand what you're going through in life to identify the matter of fact how to heal it. I chose writing as a weapon of choice. I decided that that's my ammunition to go into the world and say that, okay, this is what Vani Kabir stands for. And I've been rogered for doing all of this. I wanted to come up with my book, and I faced a lot of criticism around it. I wanted to do more talk shows. I was criticized for it. I was telling Jyotika the other day that the moment I put out the poster out that I'm doing a TEDx talk, I was being criticized for it. And for no reason, no imaginable reason that I can think of, that why are these people not letting me do something that I have worked for, I have earned for? The kind of comments and the kind of things that I received was completely mind-boggling, that why would a person, and then you understand that, this is a country where we all talk about women empowerment, and we all talk about a lot of things that, oh, the woman needs to be here and the woman needs to be there. I don't think any of that is necessary. I think the woman needs to be just a woman. That's about it. There's nothing more or less that we are expecting of. If you just let a woman be a woman and allow her to do what she wants to do in her life, she's sorted. She doesn't need your approval or your stamp or anything that you think is necessary for her. So that's exactly what was my reply to all these people. And they used to come and tell me that, oh, we've been invited to TED for so many number of times and we never, took that opportunity up. And I told them, it's your bad. I mean, you should have taken it up. Why are you coming back at me and telling me all this? When you would look at me from there, and if I stand still here, probably you would see that I am standing in the ashes of the person that I used to be. I'm actually standing in the ashes of the person that I used to be. I was a completely depressed person. My parents are sitting here, they know me. I was totally down and out. I didn't know how to manage Kabir. I really did not know what the future is going to hold up to. I knew nothing of nothing. But the only thing that I knew was that I have to make it. If I don't, who will? I am the only person who's going to put food on the table. I'm the only person who's going to go out and fetch work. Kabir used to think that because his dad left, so the mom is going to leave too. He never used to allow me to go to work. I started working bit by bit, taking up smaller consultancies, doing smaller jobs. The corporate world never accepted me as a person because they thought that single mother hai, 2 baje jana padega, 4 baje jana padega. She wouldn't be present the way that, we want a corporate person to be present. And then there were other people who tried to hit because of the fact they knew that I was single. So that didn't clearly work out for me. To just, summarize only this little bit, I have a poem written and I want to read it out to you because I clearly don't remember everything of it. I was the type of person who held on to things too tight. I secured my grip when they wanted to leave. I compressed it with all my might. I thought if I held them close, they would always remain mine. But each one of them left in a short span of time. Then loneliness came, and this time with a thought, with teachings to classes whose subscription I'd never bought. It taught me that those people were learnings. They were meant to leave anyway, because the people who are destined to stay in your life, you never have to grip them to stay. This journey from Vani Bhamra to Vani Pandya to Vani Kabir and now Vani Kabir, the modern Sufi, has not been easy. And it's never going to be easy. It's never easy for any one of us. But what we got to do is, we need to choose our ammunition that we are going to fire out in the world and say, this is me, bombing from this side of the planet. Handle it. This is me. This whole journey that I speak about and this whole thought process has stemmed from every single mistake that I've made in my life. I own up to my mistakes. I know that none of us are immune to it. And I know that it's going to make a hell lot of a change in everybody's life who hears something like this. When you receive fan mails, I receive hate mails too. I receive hate mails from people. I receive hate mails from women, men, everywhere. I receive, where I go. So there was this small incident that happened that, there was a neighborhood person that I have. And I used to come home late from my work. And there was this old lady and she used to tell me every day, "Aaj bhi late ho? Tum aaj bhi late aayi ho?" And I used to tell her very politely every day that, I'm at work, so it takes me a little time sometimes, and my office is pretty far away. And one fine day, I was actually bogged down with the work, and then something like this happened, and I came home and she said the same thing to me. And I told her that if you're so worried about me, why don't you go and feed my son? That was the first incident of retaliation. And I understood that there is a time to give it back to people, and sometimes it is necessary to say what you feel. Because how much ever you compress it. I was in a suppressed relationship for 8 long years in my life. I was looking at myself from other people's perspective and their eyes. I was ashamed to tell my own parents and my brother that I'm suffering from a manipulative relationship. How much can you take inside? It needs to get out in some way or the other. I got it out through my writings. How are you going to get it out? What all of this did to me, this whole giving back sort of a thing, it changed my personality, and I started looking at the positive side of things. And then every incident that started happening in my life, I started coining it and turning it into a positive incident. Now there's this one very hilarious incident that happened. Kabir was admitted to a new school. I went to the school for a PTM, and as usual, initially they never wanted Kabir in because they thought that being a single mother, she will never be able to afford the fees of the school. So what's the point? But then I insisted that I want Kabir in the school, and then they started fault finding in him. So they called me and they told me that, your son is very low on focus and he is very low on confidence, and he doesn't really know that, what word is what word and what letter is what letter. I was listening to it. And then she said that, he's very bad at spellings. And I told them that he would make for great passwords. That's how the whole story of me is, and I wish you all the very best to find your own ammunition.